Greetings everyone, Dominic for another How I Solved It with Client. In this one, I want to answer a question from a customer asking when they should be using a client task versus a checklist item. So thank you for Rebecca for the question. We'll look into that in just a few seconds. So first, a few features that we are going to cover today is mainly client task. So a regular task would be where you want to estimate and eventually assign resources to complete the effort. A specific client task identified as a milestone, if you want to track a key date or maybe put a validation gate, could be related to an item that will be invoiced, as we'll see in just a few seconds. And then last, the checklist items, which act as a completion item of a task or some kind of a brain dump, basically are things that should be completed on a specific task. So here we go. Let's jump right into the environment. A client task can be created both in the Kanban or in the Workspace. Let's start with the latter. As a task is part of a project, it should be comprised of information like the timeline, when the effort should be completed, the effort level, so the hours estimated to complete, and then the scope, what is to be completed within that task. Ultimately, the project is the sum of all tasks. The scope itself should be described within the description field, providing clarity both to your team and to your customer, making sure everyone's on the same page. The task is also where you'd be scheduling your resource, who is going to complete the estimated hours and then complete the work. This is also where eventually the resource should be logging their hours at that level. And ultimately, the checklist is a list of items that should be completed within that task. So it's a granular information for your team of how you should be delivering or what we expect them to complete before we mark that task as complete. The checklist can also affect the percentage complete of the task as it is being completed. As for the milestones, these tasks are key dates, validation gates that you have. It's only a task that is marked as a milestone, and if it's a deliverable that should be invoiced, it's only a matter of adding a milestone payment to it. Another way of adding tasks is through the Kanban board, hitting the plus sign at the top where you can create a new task for your project. Or another way I like using the Kanban is to go in the side panel and click on the subtasks. So there you're sure where you're adding your task as a child of the selected tasks. You can use the same information as in the Workspace, time, effort, description, so that you can add that task to your project. So to recap, we've seen different ways of adding a client task to a project. We've shown regular and milestone tasks and how we should be using them, and also the checklist items that can be added to any tasks. For the regular task, this is where you will estimate your effort and define the scope of your project. Also where you will be assigning and scheduling your resource. Ultimately, this is where the project resources will log their hours to on their timesheets. And it's also where usually you would be collaborating with other team members, either through common fields or the chatter option. As for the tasks marked as a milestone, they are key dates or validation gates within your project, often transitioning from one phase to another. They would also be used into project performance measurements. So how well did we do on our go lives, plan versus actuals? A milestone is easily leveraged for that. And then it's also where you would be invoicing a deliverable upon completion. And then finally, checklist items. They are a quick list of need to be completed items for each of the tasks, providing more details to the team of what needs to be done. It can also be used for percentage complete of tasks based on completing those checklists. And then usually they're not required to time tracking. So this is not a task. It's really something more granular so that you wouldn't necessarily need to log hours on those items. So hopefully you've seen some insights of what I just presented. As usual, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out at support@klient.com. Thanks. Have a great day.